Hi everybody, I'm Gordon Leverton. I am originally from Chatham, Ontario, and I lived in London, Ontario for 10 years. Met my lovely wife and we settled in Hamilton in 1996, so I've been here since 96, so most of my life now. Let's see, well, we have a small presentation. It's only like 6 pages, so it's not boring. What I'd really like to do is as I tell you about me, if you have any questions, please let's make it more of a conversation than a, kind of a boring lecture or whatever. So if I'm talking about something that interests you, just kind of shoot your hand up and we can talk about it. So yeah, so where should I start? I'll start talking about my art. So I'm an acrylic painter mostly. I started out about 20 years ago, really with doing pencil sketches, and then what I did was I stuck with pencil, graphite on paper, doing portraits, doing friends' pictures of animals and things like that, just like most people start out. And what I was really wanting to learn in that process was contrast, black, white, dark, shade, light. And I made it a conscious decision not to use color at that point. I was trying to just teach myself that very basic thing that runs through all art, I find, it's just one of those aspects of art that I thought I really need to get this down before I continue into color. So I did that for about a year or so, and then I started to gradually introduce color, and I got into colored pencils. Colored pencils are a lot of fun. They're very finicky and a lot of work. So you could get like a little 8x10 colored pencil. It would take you weeks to do a portrait, which is fine, which was what I needed actually at that time. I wasn't trying to sell my art. I was enjoying the process of learning how to introduce color into my work. So that was another good couple of years, and then I started actually selling some of those. I guess, well, they're drawings, but you call them paintings as well. And then I think it was at that point where I was like, well, I'm starting to sell my work. Maybe it's something I can, try and invest a little more time and money into doing. But what I found was it took so long to do a colored pencil piece that even though I did enjoy it, it's not very lucrative. So I started getting into pastels, soft pastels, which was a joy, very tricky, very unforgiving. A lot of people don't do pastels, and I can tell you why. If you haven't tried them, you really should. They're a lot of fun. They're messy. They're very tactile, and they have a texture which I've never seen. Maybe gouache is close, but there's a texture to pastels. I wish I brought one today. I forgot. Which is just so. I don't know. It gets me. I just love those looks. So I think the process of going from pastels into acrylic painting kind of informed my work on acrylic painting as well, especially with color choice, things like that. So I'm just gonna take a breath, and if there's any questions, I would love to hear anything so far, because I'm not used to talking so much about me. No, and yeah.
How did you manage to get such sharp edges if you were using pastels, or was it doing pastel at that time?
Yeah, originally this evolved over time. When I first started using pastels, I wasn't so concerned about the edges. I really let them kind of wander into each other and blend. And then I would even use, say, like a Conte crayon or something to kind of loosely, or a charcoal pencil, even to etch some lines in after. So it was just something I was really playing around with, and it wasn't until later when I got into acrylics where you could really do fine work. With pastels, very, very tough to keep. So, and things like tape or resist or anything, it's very tricky to work with pastels in that way. But definitely, definitely acrylics. And I think that's part of the strengths of each medium as well. Like, you know, you can do things with acrylic paint. You can do things with oil paint you can't do as well with acrylic. So it's interesting to kind of have a fusion of mediums. Like you learn one thing from one medium, you apply it to another one, it works or it doesn't work. But maybe you try something to experiment with that. So the lines came much later. Yeah, definitely when I was into the acrylics. Should I, yes?
What about the focus on architecture for buildings?
Good question.
What led you there?
Yeah, so originally I was from the country. I was born in Chatham, but I grew up in Thamesville, which is a tiny little spit of a town. And I didn't even grow up in the town. I grew up out in the countryside. So, so I had lots of nature, lots of nature walks, more nature walks, farm, nature. Kind of getting the point here. I had 3 older brothers and sisters, but they were much older than me, so I was kind of like an only child. So I was kind of like stuck there. And whenever we had a chance to go to Chatham, I was like, oh, you know, big city. I can't wait. I think it was from that. I think it was just that solitude that I grew up in country. I know it sounds awesome and ideal, not when you're 8 years old by yourself all the time. It's great maybe if you want to retire and you got a dog and you have all these, you know, all this land to walk around in, but that's what the city always drew me for that. So and so I was always fascinated by buildings. Architecture came along a little bit later in high school, drafting and things like that. And then when I moved to Hamilton, really, I've always lived downtown. I've always liked the vibe of the downtown area. And the kind of forgotten spaces of the city were really interesting to me, like behind the railroad track, behind, you know, through the alleyway, in the backyard, the you know, some junky places, like things that are just forgotten about or wished away. So that really drew me, much more than say, you know, it's satisfying to look at a painting of a mountain or a seascape or something, but I thought, this is really challenging and it has its own beauty. Yeah, so I would say that's I think the challenge for any artist, really, to bring out, you know, to make you stop and look at this. Like, have a look. Maybe you didn't consider that before. Now maybe you'll consider it from now on when you're walking. You know, so, should I put a slide on? Yeah, maybe some of my influences. Any other questions, please, if you have any. So what do I do? Just click on? I think I got it. Yeah, some of my influences. I can go with Hopper first. He was really, I just love Edward Hopper and how he interpreted the city, how he used, look at these colors. I mean, just, they're almost garish, but in a really interesting way that they all come around and they just feel so right together. Like this brown and this kind of like this brown and this gold. That is typical Hopper. And that kind of it creates this energy in his paintings. This one just sold for $92 million, by the way, if you want. And his wife was his muse, so you'll be happy to hear. So yeah, Hopper's sense of the city and the unease in a lot of his painting, like I don't use people in my paintings, but he was capturing people's kind of, they're together but they're lonely at the same time, which a city can be a big lonely place sometimes too. So anyway, Hopper, love Hopper. Back to Richard Diebenkorn. Probably my biggest influence, and I think it came a little bit later on. This is part of his Ocean Park series. Diebenkorn, he started off as an abstract artist and made the transfer to representational artist, which is almost completely backwards of what artists do. And then he went back into abstract again. So he's very, very, very unique style. But when I'm mapping out my paintings, I think even subconsciously, I'm always thinking of how he maps out his paintings. He has big, wide open, large space, lines. I love his lines, angles, lots of detail on the edges. That's sort of my signature style. If you ever get to see his work, I know what's the in Buffalo, the Modern Art Museum there. Yeah, the Albright Knox. They have quite a bit of his work there, and that's probably worth a few million. Just a couple other examples. There's a group called the Precisionist painters, and I didn't find them out until after I was really discovering my own style. But Charles Demuth was one of the best, and they really took sort of a growing industrial America, and they captured it in almost Cubist style. Georgia O'Keeffe was part of the group as well. So they had, I love their work. The Precisionist, you don't really hear much about that movement in art. Auguste Maca, I love his colors. His buildings in Morocco and I think he was in Tunisia as well are wonderful. He, unfortunately, I believe he was killed in World War I. Yeah, love that work. So big influences on me. Yeah. Any questions at all? Yeah, Pete.
Lionel Fenninger
Pardon me?
Lionel Fenninger.
I love Fenninger as well. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great artists that I should go back and go to more galleries, for one thing, would be nice. Although it's hard to get into galleries anymore. I think the last show I went to at before COVID in Toronto. Yeah, I went with Shema. It was you couldn't see it. You couldn't see anything. There was like 4 or 5 people in your way, and you know, yeah. So I don't know. I don't have that problem, so I'm okay. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This is my style. I guess people question the biggest question: do I use tape? No. How do I get my lines so straight? Well, I draw a grid on this is 40 by 60, so I draw quadrants with a ruler. Just make sure that basically to make sure they're straight with the edge, because especially in a bigger piece, you can really get, you lose your perspective. And then it's a lot of math. Unfortunately, I hate math, but but yeah, like a lot of the angles, there's a lot to consider. Like your shadows have to be, there's only one sun on our planet, so, and it's shining from this way, and I don't know if you can see. And then I block it all in. I usually do the whole canvas. So when I say block, just like coloring in, basically. Not being too technical yet. Blocking it in the whole painting to make sure the colors are working. Because you don't want to, I mean, it's tempting to go, oh, I love stairs, so I'm just going to do the stairs first. But what if, your stairs are one color and then it doesn't work with the rest of the painting? Well, you have to do those stairs all over again. So I make sure the colors work, or at least to me. And then at that stage, I can really start finally making sure all the edges are straight. It's acrylic, so it takes tons of layers, 3 or 4 layers, depending on the color. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, are you pretty liberal with your colors, or are they true to, like, do you have to paint better tone, or do you like to experiment with that and say it's a red brick and you're like, no, this should be green?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of happy accidents. So when it, sometimes I'll paint, a gray section, let's say. It's like, oh, well, that gray doesn't work, but maybe the green will. But I'll let a bit of that gray show underneath, maybe at the edge or something, and it gives it a little more. It's like, well, that was a mistake, but I kind of like that mistake. Yeah, so when you change one color, it affects the whole. So you really have to back up and go, okay, I like it in this section, but does it not work in another section? Or do I have to carry that color over into, say a fence post or something? So yeah, those are always considerations. They're always, yeah.
I apologize if this has been asked already. Do you work from like a real photograph?
Yes.
From an actual building?
Yes, but usually
All three?
like several photographs. So something like this would be not at all what it looks like in real life. So I'm just using those photographs kind of just as a source, and not, I don't adhere strictly to the photograph. Photographs lie. I mean, especially, they really distort around the edge. We're so used to looking at photographs that usually we don't mind so much. But really, if you look at real life and you look at a photograph, they're totally different. Yeah. Somebody else had their hand up.
I was just going to ask the same question. Do you work off a photograph?
Yeah. So again, it's easier because I could do plein air sketch, but I don't have time to.
So what would you do? Like, you just go around to different places and take a bunch of photographs and then have them, and then sort of decide later which one you want to
Yeah.
work with?
Yeah, exactly. And now that I have thousands of photos, so I can put, like, I have files with windows, like files with stairs,
Right.
files with awnings.
Why don't you explain like how you got to that part, like taking the children, like how you evolved with your reference photos?
Say what now again?
Like, I know your wife, but how you always just walk
Yeah,
with
you know
the
the answer to all
children,
this.
like walk with the children and got inspiration for the Alleyways.
Okay, well we'll get back to that, but yeah.
Okay, so I've seen some of your work where you're focused on a lot of roofs,
Yeah.
from above, or how do you get that photo, or how do you get that?
With my friend's telephoto camera lens. So
Okay. Still, you're up high, so you're
yeah.
taking it from the garden or another
Exactly.
unveiling or
Yep.
something like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
So that was a series called Sightlines that I did. So in 2015, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I spent some time up at Juravinsky, and while I was there doing treatment, I didn't have the. I just couldn't paint for that time for obvious reasons. But I thought the view of the city is incredible, especially from up in the hospital. And I thought I'm going to paint that when I get out. I'm going to paint that, and so I made a whole series. Borrowed my friend's camera with the telephoto lens, took a bunch of pictures of the lower city, and had a lot of fun with it. And I think just in a good way, got healthy again, part of the process.
Brilliant. Good for you.
Yeah, it helped a lot. So, yeah. Hey, Chris.
How do you arrive at your color palette choices? And seeing your social media posts and seeing sometimes like an iPad or a computer in the background, do you manipulate your photos with saturation or anything to kind of get to that point?
No, I'm not that tech savvy. I'm terrible. I wish I was. It would save me so much more time. I have an iPad with I got one of those iPad touches with a pen. I lost my pen and then forget. And then I turn up and then I'll use it and then it'd be out of juice and then I have to plug it in, and I'm just terrible that way. Ask anybody. But it's a very handy tool, and I wish I was better at it. I wish I knew Photoshop. I just don't have the time to devote to doing that, even though it probably would help me, save a lot of time in the end.
I was curious if that was like part of the process for you to come to your color decisions at all.
No, but it should be. It would.
But
But again, when you're looking at that, like I'd mentioned earlier about the happy accident of doing the wrong color, I think it's just part of the process too. It's part of the human process for sure. Whereas when if you're correcting it on an iPad or playing around with it, maybe that's why. Maybe deep down I'm like, I really don't want to learn that because I'm not interested in that part, applying it to my painting. I don't know.
Yeah.
You learn a lot through yourself through your art.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that you are a perfectionist in that you start something, you have to finish it, or have you thrown out, like you just started something that visibility is so bad, that I'm just not going to do it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Not as much as it used to, but yeah, it does happen time to time. I think I'm better. I'm a better judge at knowing where a painting's going, especially like it's mostly composition. If the composition is working, that's a lot of it. If it's not, I don't bother starting a bad composition anymore. If it ends up not going the way I'm expecting, I just turn it to the wall to, maybe look at it a couple months later. Because sometimes, you'll pick it up and go, oh, I know what the problem is. But sometimes you get too close you lose your perspective of what's going right and wrong with the painting. Yeah.
You unpack what you mean by the composition, because I think the composition is probably driving a lot when you're at the camera, looking for what you're going to take photos of, and then you get home and sifting through those photos and what you decide to paint. What are you looking for? What is the image that makes you decide, yeah, I'm going to go for this one and start to put that together? What are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, I think it goes back to my influences. You're looking at Hopper and Diebenkorn, and what makes them so exciting to me is the composition of their works. And when I see something I can relate to in those terms in real life, I get super excited and just click as much as I can and
Is it balance?
yeah.
I guess I'm trying to, what's the composition that's attractive symmetry or balance that can grab your eye, or are you going to sort of unpack that a bit more, or is it so much?
There's sometimes symmetry, yeah, not always. Again, I do like, as a rule, I do like a big space balanced out by a lot of detail around the edges. That's something that I love exploring. You know, there's certain things that I like to, and I think other people are drawn to, like you know, shadows. Shadows play a big part, because you could walk by a building on a day like today and not even notice it, but if it's a beautiful fall day like it was Saturday, you're just like, oh my gosh, you know, look at all these shadows and angles and triangles. People love triangles. It's true.
You don't do circles very often, or curves.
Not often, no. Sometimes in shadows I do. Yeah, is it? Yeah, I get, yeah.
Well, I call it geometric, but that's not the right word.
I don't know what the word is. Yeah, geometric definitely applies for sure.
Geometric also has circles, but
Yeah,
straight lines.
a lot, very linear. Yeah, yeah,
That's what I meant.
yeah.
And you don't put like the wires, you know, like you
No.
maybe took a photo of that building.
Yeah.
There might have been wires.
Yeah,
There might have been curtains in a different,
yeah.
but I don't generally see that in your work.
No, I like to take a lot of the detail out, like the people, cars,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the wires. I mean, that's not.
But you got a leaf drawing.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, yeah. I don't.
Downspoke.
It's a line. But to me, it's about the build. Well, is it about the building? It's. Yeah, it's a tough question to answer. What is it about? It's about something. It's about seeing some kind of abstraction that just happens to involve buildings. Because I do paintings where I have several buildings, like, you know, or I'll have a backyard space and buildings around it. So you can't really say, well, that's about the architecture, because it really isn't. It's about color and space and
Line.
yeah.
And alleyways. Hamilton has alleyways.
Yeah, and getting,
I
think,
grew up in Hamilton with an alley.
yeah,
It's a fond memory.
yeah,
I know some of them are pretty ugly, but it's still part of the culture of this neighborhood.
It is.
sort of.
yeah, and alleyways were, you know, sort of seen as, at some point they were seen as, well, ugly and not, you know, not useful. But that's really come around.
Not when I was a kid,
No,
you know? So
no,
that's
they were
different
great.
age.
They were very useful. But they, you know, you remember when they were like, oh, well, alleyways, yuck. But now it's alleyways are great,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Again. So that's just the way the city evolves, or at least looking at the city evolves. But getting back to what my wife mentioned, we have alleyways in my neighborhood. So I live just off of Locke Street. And when the kids were young, I would take them out, you know, in the stroller, and it was great because it was so quiet. Like the city was noisy, but the alleyways are so quiet. It was like, it was a little bit of that country again, that little bit of solace in the city. Plus you can see into people's business, right? You see, like, you know, the umbrellas and the clotheslines and the stuff that people didn't want you to see in the front yard, and the stacks of, what's interesting is how buildings evolve over the years too. Like, say, you know, there's an Italian community downtown, and well, now, you know, the Italians moved out, and now it's Vietnamese that live there, and they add their own flair to it. So that's really interesting too. And yeah, just how buildings evolve over the years is pretty interesting.
Yours are neat.
Pardon me?
Your work, I think, is neat.
Thank you. Orderly.
And what I mean is, pardon?
Orderly?
Yeah, but there's no clutter in it, like.
Right,
if
yeah.
it's a normal neighborhood, you might see some clutter.
Yes, trash
Or trash
bags
or,
and, yeah. The
something-
normal workings of a
something
city.
blue- Something blue and landed there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yours are neat.
I like the Miles Davis school of it's what you don't play. leave room for
Yeah, I was just
improvisation.
gonna ask, sort of along that line is, you're talking about alleys and stuff. Have you ever included any graffiti in any of your paintings? Because that's kind of it's not necessarily neat.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it seems to be very prolific.
You're right, and it as much as I love graffiti work, and I love graffiti, I even took a spray paint class here. It gets in the way of what I would want to see, but I love it. I mean, I'm not
Yeah, no, it's an
Anti-
interesting sort of form of art, I guess.
Yes.
That's for sure. If your alley walks, you would see a lot of it.
You do more so now, for sure. Yeah. I think I've only done 1 or 2 pieces with graffiti in it, but it was it was graffiti I made, like a tag that I made. And I would never feel comfortable copying someone's graffiti on my own without at least giving them a credit in the title or something. But I mean, yeah, that's not something that I would pursue. But yeah, I love graffiti. I love urban art. It's cave drawings for, modern cave drawings really, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, the kids, they would just put them to sleep and then be strolling and walking down the alleyway and taking pictures, and it was a good time.
How much time now is spent still collecting those images that you see, and how much time is in the studio painting?
Well, when COVID hit and no one was allowed to go anywhere, I found Google Street View really helpful in that I can now go on Street View and I can look for, oh, there's a cool alleyway, and then I'll go check that out in person. So it saves a lot of time that way. Definitely, well, getting back to the technology, I guess that's where I'm using technology now, is just when I can make good use of my time with it. So yeah, so now not as much as photographers. I mean, I feel badly for photographers because their love is to get out there on the street and photograph what they see, but 70% of what they do is in post-production sitting at a computer. So I'm not there. I enjoy doing, collecting the photographs and, seeing what I can do, but it doesn't take up a large amount of my time, I would say. Yeah. Did I,
What about your studio? Practically, maybe take us through a day in your studio. Where do you work and how do you like to work? And,
yep.
what's
So,
your kind of routine?
So I get up, have my coffee, read the news, and I get to, I get into my studio about 11, and it's in my house. And then I work till about 6 every day with a break for lunch. Usually go for a walk with my wife to get a coffee or something. And I work probably just about every day almost
And
every day.
what about light? Is it natural light, big windows in
Yeah.
your studio?
It's not north facing, but it is east facing. So there's a big, it's very well lit, and I have these like high intensity lights that I use. So yeah.
How do you get the surface is so smooth? Is that just the?
I'm demanding on my the people that do my that do my canvases. So I get them done in Toronto.
What do you mean you get them done?
So they're like this. There's a place in Toronto that makes canvases. So they do them for me, and they know my style, so they know I'm flat and like everything's got to be smooth and flat. Is that what you mean, or do you mean?
Well, no, but it's interesting
Okay.
to hear that. But it's a regular cloth sort of canvas.
Yeah,
I don't know
canvas.
if it works.
Canvas.
I don't know
It's
if it works. So,
it's primed canvas.
So, but you're like the green, and and the blue sky, it's so smooth. Like no texture, no paint.
Yes.
strokes, You see nothing.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to
Yes.
explain.
Yeah. There's no
How do you get
impasto. Yeah. It's very.
that?
It's
How do you
flat.
get that? It's very,
With
is it
well.
the texture of the paint?
Yeah. Well, I use heavy body acrylics.
Yeah.
But I do water them down a bit.
Okay.
So and it also thin layers, like thin layers.
Layers up there.
Yes. Yeah.
Thin and-
Yes. Yeah. So the sky would take 4 layers of.
And you
of
never
the-
use a brush, you don't use palette knives? Palette knife, do you use palette?
No, only to hold my paint when I'm.
Okay, oh yeah,
When
oh
I'm-
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. But that's interesting. Like I'm not. That's something I might explore. I don't know.
No, but I don't know all of your work, but every time I see it, I think it's so smooth. It's like, what to do, you know?
Yeah.
This is what mine don't generally aren't very smooth. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Many layers.
Do you paint flat or do you paint vertically?
Oh, on an easel.
I mean,
But
with that.
flat.
No.
My easel will tilt,
Yeah, mine tilts back a little bit. So.
Okay.
horizontal.
Oh no.
No?
No. No. Just
Standing, it's,
sometimes when I varnish the painting, I'll put it on a flat table. But no. Yeah, it's always standing. I move it around when I need to.
Do you varnish your paintings because they're very matte?
Yeah. So yeah. So I use like an acrylic isolation coat. It's called. It's kind of technical, and then a varnish over top of that. So. There is spray and there's also like a brush varnish. So either one's good.
was that about a varnish? Varnish that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just, again, you see nothing.
Yeah. It's.
Even to varnish, sometimes if you see a stroke or a vintage, a brush line. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The texture of the paint or the varnish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. If I leave a little bit too much of a ridge, I have a razor blade that I can just cut it off.
Almost standards?
Yes. Yeah.
So you don't ever paint on gessoed panels?
I don't like panels. I don't like working on panels. I've tried it. I've done it. I don't like it. I like the play of the canvas. It's just a tactile thing, I think. Because yeah, lots of my friends work on panels. And they're like, oh, you should work on panels. So I have tried it, and I don't like it.
What are your go-to brushes for painting?
Cheap. Whatever's on sale. Because I'm brutal at cleaning brushes, so I don't buy expensive ones. Although I have several expensive varnish brushes because it's worth it. But
Are you using like flats or brights or filberts?
yeah, all of them. Yeah, all of them. Nothing like none of the textury like oil brushes that you would think of. But yeah, a lot of the flat brushes and tiny, the tiny, I guess number 2 size for doing fine work around fine line work. Yeah.
So would you do a line around the edge eventually when you've got your shape to get that tighter, cleaner?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So when you're doing a line, it's I guess most people would think, well, you're just really steady and you do this line, and you make it doesn't matter how straight the line is, but you almost sculpt it. So you paint up to it, and those lines that you paint up to the line have to be straight. It's a little hard to, you could see it in the painting. You can all come up and have a better look, but yeah, it's like here's your line, and you're painting up to the line. So that's what makes it just makes it.
And what size of brush in that moment are you using? I don't mind now, sorry.
I don't either. This. Yeah, it depends on the size. Depends on the size. Not angled too much, but it depends on the size of the painting and how big the space is. I just grabbed the what's at hand, basically, yeah. It's nothing too technical. Yeah.
I'm curious about your shadows, like, if you're working off, picture, right? So, like, did those just come naturally to you, or, because the placement is really incredible. So, if that is something that came to you over time, or
I'm getting better at, okay, here's one. I have a commission that I'm doing, and it's completely in shade. So I'm going to put my own shadows in. Now it's up to me where where the sun is going to be from, but so shadows, and now I guess I do them so much. I guess I just know, what a good place to put a shadow, or where. Also that it's going to be. There's no way that would ever happen in nature. You have to keep some of that in mind as well, right? So, yeah. Yeah.
You work on one painting at a time, or you dedicate to just one at a time, or you go back and forth from one?
If I'm doing smaller ones, I'll do several at once. When I'm doing a large piece, I like to get it done, unless I'm stuck, then I'll put that painting aside and work on something else. I also do a lot of commissions, so there are time considerations for things. So if I can get ahead on a commission, then I always like to do that as well, just to keep the pressure off a little bit. So, yeah, yeah. So that would be it. And I only have so much space to work on in my studio, so I'm not going to get several large ones going at once, but I have a drink of water, I think. I'm talking too much. I've talked more today than I have in a month. I don't know what it's saying. I let the paint do the talking, I guess.
All from the same edge, I don't know, I can't see the edge of your paintings, the edge. Like, you don't frame them. That's
Yeah.
it.
No, I do frame. I can frame. Galleries don't like them framed.
Yeah.
So this one's going to my gallery in Toronto, and they don't want my frame. They don't want
What's
my.
on the edge? I can't
Just
see.
it's
Black or
painted gray. It's painted gray.
gray?
Yeah.
All of them. You
Yeah.
always do gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you more comfortable working on large canvases or small ones?
They're different challenges, and also I'll add to that if they're landscape or portrait as well. So I like doing medium, I guess, medium size, because you can see the results quicker, whereas a large canvas, you're sort of walking the tightrope for a little bit until a certain part arrives. And then you're like, whoosh, okay, this is going to work. Whereas a small one, there's no pressure. Like, you're just like, okay, well, that didn't work. I'll just take the canvas off, put a new canvas on. Yeah, so I guess it's more that way. There's more at stake when you're doing a large one, because you're hopeful it's going to be good and that your gallery will like it and sell it for you, right? And yeah.
Do you think different parts of Canada prefer maybe a different colorway or a different type of work? Or do you prefer the longer shapes or the skinnies?
I like square paintings. In my gallery says, why do artists like doing squares? I'm like that. I don't know. I don't know. I like doing squares. I like skinny long ones as well, because buildings tend to go up, so you can catch a nice sliver of a building. Also, where we live, there's a lot of old homes, and there's a lot of kind of nooks and crannies where you can fit these little paintings where you can't fit a big one, but you fit these little kind of 12 by 36 ones. So those are considerations for me, at least, too. So yeah, do it. But preference, yeah, medium square ones. I like those.
Where does this go for you?
I'll get to that in a second. Chris, you had.
How many containers of pre-mixed colors have you got going on? Because you use the same palette throughout a lot of paintings, and so you're using some maybe straight from the tube or whatever, but how many are you mixing yourself by hand? And how big a container are you like mixing if you're going to color match like you're going to paint down the road with the same
Okay.
color?
So if you couldn't hear, Chris was asking how many pre-mixed colors do I use? So stuff that's straight out of the bottle or out of the can or whatever. I have a pretty, well, my wife would say I have too much paint, but and they're not cheap. And I use golden usually because they're really good. And for me, when I'm doing layers, I want a good quality paint because I don't want to do 10 layers. It's like painting a house. If you buy cheap paint, you're going to have to, do like 5 coats. If you do a good quality paint, you do 2 coats. But the premix, there's certain go-tos like Payne's Gray. I use Titan Buff, Titanium White. I mean, those are kind of my meat and potatoes. And then just, all the other colors, I guess, right?
But you're
Teal.
mixing some of your own.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was getting was like, how many of those kind of colors and like the volume of like paint you would mix, and you have a process to like keep that color in mind if you have to remake it down the road at all.
Oh, yeah, that's tricky. Yeah, so say this is a cerulean blue, but it has white mixed in it because pure cerulean would look way too blue, right? So, yeah, sometimes it happens when I get a painting back from a gallery and maybe it's got a little mark on it or something, and I have to, end up repainting the whole section rather than just doing a little touch up, which is just, it's just part of the game, Yeah. So, oh yeah.
Did you experiment with different styles before you finally arrived at your current style and said, yeah, this is what I want to do?
Yeah.
Was it kind of a gradual based on the influence of other artists?
That's good. That's something I was going to mention, but I forgot. Yeah, so when I started doing sort of my style, like doing buildings, I really was into old buildings with signs, and I did a lot of signs in my work, and I really enjoyed doing, just old signs and neon signs and things like that. And I don't know, it felt like it was, the painting became about the sign and less about everything around it, and that's where I sort of arrived. I was doing people. I do put people in. It became about that. It became about the person. When you don't put people in your painting, there's no focus. The focus is on the scene, not the story of the person. It becomes about you looking at it. It's not the person in the painting. So after I got through my sign period, I just started doing more, like I really liked doing buildings. They really spoke to me. And again, I think like getting that to that point of abstraction, seeing abstract in the everyday, does that make sense? So where am I going?
Well, yeah, do you feel, is there lots of room for self-expression in this style and what you've been working in? Do you feel it might evolve? Do you have any sense of that right now? Talk a bit more about that.
So I'm doing right now what I love to do. I don't think I would change anything, but I'm always open to change, and I hope to grow as an artist. I think what happens when you start selling your work, and sometimes for a lot of money, is that you can feel pressured into reproducing, you can fall into not a rut, but maybe creatively a rut. But I always want to push myself. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't want to paint anymore. I'd want to do something else. I don't know I can't read the tea leaves and see what's going to happen 10 years from now, but I'm happy where I am right now. It's not like I have a plan, like a career path.
Do you feel always would be focused on architecture, buildings? You think at some point you'll see and say, you know what, I think what happened, I took this style into something else?
Yeah, maybe I'll go more abstract. Maybe I'll use a palette knife or maybe I'll use materials. It really depends on, the space I have and where, if I'm able to still make myself happy. That's it. I'm trying to make myself happy first and trying to find out who I am. And as I change, I think your art has to change along with you. Like I mentioned with the being at Juravinsky, and that was a big life-changing moment, and it affected my art. So I don't see how it couldn't, Yeah, so.
Do you like?
Sorry.
So for me, like, there's a certain mystery. I don't know if it's the window or something. Is that something that you see in your art too? Like
The voyeurism.
Well, I don't know. But
Yeah.
is that something you wanted to do, or is that just come out of the way that you paint?
I think it came out subconsciously, but because that's what Edward Hopper was doing too. Yeah, it was that sort of. It's par for the course. You're looking at someone's window.
Yeah.
Well, get out of here, you creep. But and in that way.
It's the windows really that create that, right?
They are eyes, right? They are eyes, and also relating to the voyeuristic part of it, and not having people in the painting. Well, you're the viewer, you're the person in the painting, but there's someone there, or there is a life lived, or lives lived there. So it becomes more, I guess, if you think a little more deeply about it, that's interesting.
Like, what's going on in the palette?
Yes. No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you always been interested in art from all the way from your childhood all the way up to now?
When, I was this tall.
You were or
Before I even knew anything. Yeah, I loved art and was considered the artsy kid in my class. Gord's good at art. I don't know, they just it's Gord, he's good at art. Whatever. And I didn't consider myself an artist, but I loved it. And then I loved music as almost as much as art. So yeah, and literature and everything. I just love all the creative pathways. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, how about you?
yeah, I love art so much. My favorite thing around.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, just never let it out of your life. That would be, if there's a bit of advice there.
Do you think a commission, what's more fun for you? Doing a commission or doing, I see that building and I gotta paint it?
That.
Yeah, but you're own.
Yeah. I mean, commissions though,
You need them, of course, yeah, but.
yeah, I'm also choosy, so it's not like I just take any old thing, but for me, doing a commission, it is challenging because you're trying to satisfy both the client and you, but it helps if if there's a story behind the commission and I can connect with that story. That really makes me, like, I just put everything else on hold and just pour that into the painting as much as I can. So, and I think people know that, well, it's commission, but they know who they're commissioning, so they expect.
What's your signature? Like, do you, am I looking there? Is that?
Yeah, it's just,
Your signature?
G,
On the left?
yeah, and I would love people to come up and have a better look. I don't know if we can move this, like in a safe, socially distanced way. Yeah, it's just a little, I don't know, just a swirl with my initials.
Because, at the workshop, and that's a curious thing always for an artist, their signature. I get different thoughts about that, like somebody put their whole name or their print, or some people will split, you don't even know what you're looking at. So
I've got a long last name though, so it's like,
well, but
some
people might choose to do that.
Oh, I did a show a couple of years ago, before COVID, and this kid was looking at me. I was at Toronto Outdoor in the tent, and he's like, oh, I love your work, but I hate your signature. And then, of course, at home, I'm like, does my signature suck? Like, is it bad? You gotta roll with the punches.
Take it around and show what you did about.
It's not signed. It's not signed.
So you have a bigger, a neater one on the back or something? On the back?
Yeah, I'll put the title and my full name and the year. So. Oh yeah.
And I apologize for not knowing this, but again.
Well, I would say do as much as you can. I mean, the experience of playing soccer or something, that'll transfer into your art as well. Going for a walk, or listening to, the new Taylor Swift or something. It's like that take inspiration from wherever it comes, and you're young, you can make all the mistakes in the world, and that's part of the process, is making mistakes. Make those mistakes, because those mistakes become happy accidents, right? Like, I would say, yeah, as long as you love it, pursue it, for sure.
What about taking classes?
Classes are good. Yeah, I didn't have an art education. I just sort of went on the internet and learned as much as I could and applied it to what I wanted to do. There's a lot of great websites. I think Smithsonian has a great website with art classes on it. There's a couple of, I think, what's the one? Wetcanvas.com, I think. It's like a meeting group for artists with different threads on all the different mediums, and yeah, there's lots of great resources. You don't have to just do school. You could do, just take life, the examples that are provided in life, and go with it, I would say. Yeah.
One last question, anyone? Can I be the last question?
Sure.
You are the co-founder of the West Hamilton Art Tour.
Yes.
And you are very active online social media.
Yes.
Maybe talk a bit about what you've learned and what advice you might have for other artists who are looking to build themselves an audience using some of those tools and things like that. What advice and things you can share about that?
Well, okay, so that's the business side. If you're completely dumbfounded by the business side, maybe take an online course on business and social media, and just learn a little bit. Like, even if it doesn't all sink in, just learn a little bit about it. So I'm lucky that I have my studio at home, so I don't have like a monthly fee to pay. But my rent is social media. That's my store. So I put, a good amount of money into social media posts, and what I get back out of it is substantial for sure. So I would say that, because I like social media as much as anyone else, I guess, but I'm not an expert. My wife really helps me out with this. we partner up. She's very savvy with social media. So if you can have a Nancy in your life and you're promoting your artwork, that's definitely a bonus. Was there another part of the question?
I think, can I help with that question a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
So I think that, you know, for part of my career, I was not part of work process. And now being at home and seeing Gord doing his work, I'm now part of the process and also let others see that part of the process. I think that's a big pull where collectors and people are interested in the art of the process and seeing the vulnerability of a blank canvas or a color that's not the right color. So I think that's a really good fit to be vulnerable, allow folks in to see the process, and I think that's important, being authentic in that. So it's not about the sale, it's about the story behind it. So I think that's how social media has helped Gord and helps people see that he's not painting with a ruler or the tape and color.
Yeah.
He's painting authentically, and I think that's important to show the process through social media. So I think that's important. So.
Sorry. So you mentioned WAHAA.
Oh, the what? Yeah, the what tour?
I think you mentioned that, or maybe I missed. So yeah, that's what I'm also interested. So it says on it, you started that.
Yeah. So
You initiated that.
Siobhan Lynch, Tara Lynn Franco, and
How
I. Yeah.
many people are in that? Like 100? No.
No. Well, it's gotten bigger over the years, but I think one year we had maybe 43 artists.
But because I like that too, and anyway, Grimsby has a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Lakeside Pump House Artists, so they're great. Anyway, so if I had a couple group of friends, let's say, and I said, oh, let's get together every Wednesday morning, is that kind of how you started, like to paint, did you?
No, this one's like it's like no. This is
for each other.
this is a studio tour. So
Well, I know, yeah, that.
okay,
That's not a group that gets together and chats about art.
no,
Oh.
no.
Oh,
So
sorry.
it's a studio tour,
Yeah.
which are a lot of work.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
advise anyone who goes on a studio tour to
Yeah.
appreciate how much work they are herding 43 cats or 80 cats or whatever, motivating them to do social media, motivating them to, maybe start your own website. Yeah, it's challenging, and then you have so many facets of it, like advertising and getting the pamphlets out and coordinating with the newspaper and media and stuff. It's just like, I mean, Kira, you must know that's your job. It's just so much. It's a lot. And for a part-time organization that gets together, that has one event a year, we almost need like a part-time person doing it full all year round. So I don't know if that's going to be viable going into the future, but we'll see.